Hey everybody, Ian Lee here. Hope y'all are doing well. In today's video, I want to talk about a couple of, really two things in essence. Let's talk about the main category here, kind of the umbrella subject, which is contrary motion on the guitar using Barry Harris's scales of chords. I'm going to be pulling a lot of stuff, a lot of ideas here from a wonderful thinker on this subject and practicer of this stuff and teacher, Thomas Eccles from the Labyrinth of Limitations. His YouTube channel is in the link. It's linked in the description below. He and a few other channels and websites are always linked in my description below because I just think they're wonderful resources and people need to know about this stuff if it piques your interest. So I find it really fascinating, fun, beautiful stuff to practice. So let's talk about some contrary motion. Just for anybody that's watching that maybe isn't familiar with this concept, contrary motion is, if you think about a musical staff, you have two notes. Well, it starts as one note, and then it becomes two notes as, we're ascending and descending a scale. So for example, let's just use C major, just for quick and easy thinking purposes. We would have, C on the staff, and then that C would go down to a B note, right? And then it would go up to a D, right? And then it would keep, the bass note would descend the scale, the soprano voice would ascend the scale, and you have this expanding contrary motion, or it could contract inwards, and it could do that, go up and down, up and down. But we're doing this with Barry Harris's scales of chords, and this is something that Barry, in the Barry Harris workshop videos, talks about. You can see it in various things on YouTube where he talks about, he'll have a student practice this on the piano. And in the workshop videos, he has guitar players do it, but I think at the time I'd only seen it done in where it was literally just two voices. What Thomas has coined, which I think is great, is this idea called the elevator sequence. So he made a predictable set of voicings that follow each other in terms of the contrary motion. Let me play through it really quick, just, it might make more sense if you just hear it. So. Sorry. So I have the bass and the soprano voice constantly, either ascending the scale, going away from each other, or descending the scale, coming closer, and there's these gaps being filled in by these predictable voicings, and it's just brilliant stuff. So we have contrary motion, and it's a really cool thing to play with and practice. I'm still getting used to it, getting the feel for it. I'm not that fluid with it yet, but I think it's wonderful, and it's really fun and beautiful to play with. And there's a lot of potential here. But I wanted to isolate in this video one specific area of the elevator sequence that just occurred to me today as I was practicing. So I was playing with B minor 6 diminished, that particular scale. And as I was playing with this scale and following the elevator sequence, which is always, depending on, you could start from any note, any degree of the scale, but you always have a unison, a third, a triad. It may not always look like a classic triad that you're used to thinking of on the guitar, but it is what we call a triad, and then, at least in Barry Harris land, and then what Thomas calls a shell chord. And then we move to an octave chord, and then we move to a drop 2, and then we move to a drop 3, and then move to a drop 2, 4. And we're always following this on, off, or off-on pattern, depending on where you start on the scale. So you always have an inversion of B minor 6, or an inversion of the diminished chord, or some, in this case, the diminished chord doesn't invert, right? That's the beauty of the diminished chord. It's very cool stuff. But what I was thinking about in particular was shell chords. I just recently, over the last couple days, was like, starting to go, I want to work with shell chords a little bit more. I work with drop 2, drop 3, drop 2, and 4 very frequently, every week, practicing them, just continuing to get them under my hands and into my ears. I thought I'm going to work with these shell chords. Now, shell chords this is a Thomas Eccles, what he's deeming them as a shell chord. And I like the term. I think it makes a lot of sense. We typically as guitar players think of a shell chord as maybe one of these little nice 3-note voicings, like here on a G6, or that could be a B minor 6 or an E7 with the B in the bass, the 5th degree in the bass, little things like that. But in this instance, he means a 4-note chord that is incomplete. So if we look at the elevator sequence, just up to the shell chord, but with no filler notes. We have unison, third, then we have this nice little thing here, and then we have this nice little 6th here. Now, in this instance, we're on the diminished, which is B flat diminished in our scale of chords in B minor 6. Now, this is really cool. When you have a shell chord, you have 2 voicing options, or your incomplete chord, however you want to look at it. You have this boundary and you have to fill in the gap. And in this case, we have diminished chords. So I have 2 note options. I'm playing a B flat diminished. I have a D flat, I have a B flat. Well, that means that I have a G or an E I can fill in there. We have this delightful little shape, right? Or we have this delightful little shape. These are both nice little diminished shapes, right? Some people might be used to seeing this one in the context of that wonderful little 7 chord that we can play on the guitar. And it's just the upper part of that. Okay? Now, so I like to look at these as the high version because we have the higher of the 2 notes we can pick from to fill in the gap, versus in the low version. High, low, high, low, high, low. And I was thinking as I was I'm just really, like I said, beginning to experiment with these shell chords or incomplete chords a little more. And I was going, okay, well, how do I, what's a way I could use this that feels musical, that feels, like I'm using my own creativity. And I thought, okay, well, when I play through the elevator sequence and I come upon a shell chord, or come upon my shell chord, why don't I use the high voicing upon ascending and the low voicing upon descending? I just looked at the voice leading of it, and this is what came about. So I have, see, that leads very nicely. Da, da. Whereas when I'm descending, it just had a nice ring to it. To me, at least. It may not sound good to you, and that's fine. The point is, I'm trying to encourage you to think about little things like this. Find ways that you want to play different facets of the scale of chords that makes sense to you, and you create your own ways to move through these things using contrary motion. So for me, it was like, okay, maybe when I'm practicing my elevator sequence from now on, whether I'm on the on chord or the off chord, in order to get a hold of both kinds of shell voicings a little better and in a different capacity, I'll use the higher version upon ascending and use the lower version upon descending. And of course, you could always switch it around. I could go, it sounds fine too. It's really great. But then you can also go, and then I could go down. Let's see. And then it's really up to you, but I thought, for a little while, I'll do it like that. High voicing ascends, low voicing descends. And of course, over time, as our hands get comfortable with these ideas, our ears begin to hear it, it'll all kind of gel, and, those decisions will continue to make themselves. But I thought I'd share that with y'all in the hopes that it'll help you continue to create ideas and open up and express and explore your own creativity. Yeah, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you're liking what you're seeing, and please comment if you have any questions or if there's anything you want to see. All right, thanks so much.